So let's anybody during the week work on getting your calendar in place for doing the auto flow and concentrating on trying to do some of the live flow at all? No? Okay. So let me read you a couple things. So here's a message that somebody got, and it says, "What are your thoughts? Hi, thank you for reaching out. What are your thoughts on land parcels along Lakeshore next to Lake Erie? I see some good prices, but don't know what kind of flood risk they come with." So not a bad response. That's somebody reaching out, obviously. Well, what started that was I've been doing my using the Canadian Real Estate Association report, and I've been customizing the emails. So I basically started off and said, "Hi, Asim and Zila. I must say this is not a typical winter in Toronto. If you can get through this one, the rest will be easy. So many people are asking me about what's going on in the real estate market, so I wanted to share the Canadian Real Estate Association's most recent update about it. The report is about the Canadian market in general and is very informative. The report and supporting charts are attached. Also, if you or your family and friends need more specific information about yours or their particular situation, I can definitely help. Just reply to this email or call me directly. Just an FYI, if you've ever thought about buying a place in Toronto, this would be the year to do it. Prices are down and some motivated sellers. All the best, Scott." And so from that, I got that response. And then we had a continuation of different, criteria and things like that. And I can tell you that if I didn't reach out with just that email, I wouldn't have got that response, I don't think, because they've already started the process. So by me interacting with them, the opportunity and the other thing that came out of it is I gave him some information about Lake Erie. He also said, we really like sunsets. And I said, well, if you like sunsets, then on the shores of Lake Huron, we'll give you the best sunsets. And he came back and said, "Hey, sounds like you really know your stuff in those areas. I wasn't sure if you worked that area or not, but I'll reach out once I come up with a little bit more detail." So I probably would have lost that client by me not reaching out with some specific ways of interacting with them, assuming that they knew I did real estate in that area, right? So here's another one that I sent out, and this is what I got back. "Hi, Scott. Sorry, I thought I had updated you. Thank you so much for the follow-up. I did lower the rent, and the tenant, Adriana, stayed. Please keep me in mind as I think once things pick up in the market, I need to sell the rental and also look at selling my principal residence to get me into a bungalow. Take care. Have a great day. Keep in touch." So this is a lady that was referred to me 3 years ago just to do a rental for her. And unfortunately, the tenant that we went in was a bit of a pain. So it was, we really struggled with it. Finally got him out. And then she called me back in October and just said, "Hey, Scott, what's going on in the rental market? The tenant's giving me notice. They can't afford what they were paying." And my advice to her was, instead of trying to rent it right now, we are seeing rental properties are starting to reduce a bit to try and get, if she's a good tenant, then I suggest you just lower the rent directly with her. And that way, because if I have to rent it, then you got to pay 1 month's rent. And it was renting for $4,000 a month. So just by letting her, I said, even if you reduce it by $500 to keep her, then you have no hassles. You got a good tenant. And so I sent her this message on February 17th. "Hi, Vinny. I hope you work things out with your tenant. If not, let me know how I can help." And then I went into the same thing, just said, also so many people are asking me about what's going on in the market and my same little verbiage. And that's what I got back. "Sorry, I thought I had updated you." So I've only sent out 12 of these. I tried to get more done, but I'm going to do some more today. But I also had another response from somebody I met while I was on my trip in November that communicated with. He is a financial planner in the Niagara region. Sent him an email, just said, hey, I don't know if you've seen this report. First, I did say, hey, it's great meeting you down in the Dominican. We're having a crappy winter, man. I bet you feel like you'd like to still be down there. And by the way, lots of people asking me what's going on in the real estate market. I've attached this report. It might be something that you might be able to share with your database, your clients, just to give them some idea what's going on in the real estate sector. Hope all's well. I'm going away. When I get back, maybe we can grab lunch and talk because he has a huge database. He's been doing financial planning. And when we were down there, he says, a lot of my clients, they're at the point where they're either downsizing or they've got to go into homes. So like he said, let's keep in touch. The interesting part was I sent it to him to his personal email. Did not get a response. Sent it to his business email and just on Tuesday, because I hadn't heard from him, and I thought that's strange. Sent it to his business email, and he emailed me right back and said, hey, sorry, I missed this. He said, I just checked. It went into my spam. So he would not have seen it if I didn't take that extra step. Okay. So really important, and you all know this, but I still have to let you know, like you've got to just don't assume that you sent something out and that they got it. Go to the point where you have to text them sometimes and say, hey, by the way, I sent you an email. Just want to make sure you get it in case it went into your junk or spam. There's some real good information on the market. So by following up doing that, at least I've noticed in the last 4 months that by doing that extra step, I've created more conversations that I would not have because if I didn't follow up that second time, they didn't even see the first one or they forgot about it. So are you finding any of that when you're sending out your stuff? Is
Yeah,
anybody getting issues like that?
a little bit here and there. It depends on how good their spam filter is, I guess.
Yeah. But that extra step is really important. And lots of agents won't take it because they'll just say, well, I sent out automated text. And that's where looking at that the auto flow is important, but it's that other step, that live flow that we're going to reinforce and create the deals. Okay. So if you're not doing that step, you're going to lose out on business because somebody else will get it.
With Lofty, the great thing about Lofty is when you send out an email, it'll tell you if they opened it. And so when I'm looking through my database and I notice someone that I know didn't open that email, I'll send them a quick text. Hey, I sent you a property report, or I sent you something going on in Mississauga. Did you see it? Oh, let me check. Oh, no, I haven't seen it yet. Let me click on it, and then boom, it'll tell me that they opened it. So it gives me that ability to reach out to them, say, hey, I sent you this. Can you check?
Yeah. And, but it's important that you go back and check, right? So, that's part of the idea of really looking at what are you doing daily and weekly. One of those things is you got to look through your database continuously and look for and make sure that, that's great that the system's going to let you know if they opened it or not. But if you're not going back and checking, then how do you know? So, that's the big difference between making the transactions move forward and then losing out on potential business. And it's just that little bit that you can do that'll make the difference. And I'm finding lots of agents just aren't doing it. They're ticking the box of going, yeah, I sent out emails. Yeah, I sent out flyers. Yeah, I posted an ad, but then they're not doing that extra bit. So I just don't want you guys to be in that category where you're doing stuff, but you're not doing that one or two extra things that's going to move the conversation more towards the transaction. How well are you going through your database? I know I talked about it, but how well are you going through and really understanding what your clients do, what your database does? Who do they work for? What do they do? Versus them just being in your database. Nobody?
I feel like my database is a mess, so I've been kind of chipping away at it.
Okay.
Yeah. It seems to be in like 3 different places, and that's been my problem for a long time. And I keep going through and spending a little time at it, but what I feel like doing is like tearing it down and starting all over again.
And it's
Maybe
not a
that's
bad
the
idea.
way to do. Yeah, it's not a bad
Yeah,
idea.
it's
Because
not a bad idea.
I put all this stuff in Lofty, and it's great, except I see that there's a lot of junk, and yeah.
You're better off to have a smaller database that
Hmm.
you really know well than a
Hmm.
whole bunch of names that you don't. Okay. And like, for example, um, I try to get to know what my clients do, what their hobbies are, and I look for a reason to reach out. You guys have heard me before. I'm an NFL football fan. I know all of the people that are in my data, the majority of the people in my database that I converse with. I know if they follow football. I know who their team is. I make sure I reach out beforehand and wish them good luck. I also text them after the game and say, hey, sorry for your loss. The team looked pretty close. Um, and I also know, I got clients that are high up in the financial industry. I'm reaching out to them. I'm sending my report and I'm asking them, hey, what other reports do you have that you might be able to share with me from the financial sector on where you think the market is? But one of them that just happened, and I know Michelle posted on because someone asked me yesterday. I was talking with a good friend of mine who's an agent, and he said, I saw Michelle posted something about a box of butter. I said, yeah, why? And it didn't dawn on me right away. And he said, what the hell's butter got to do with what you guys are doing? And I thought about it. I said, well, she is dairy free. Nadine's dairy free. And then I was like, oh, crap, I know. So we're at dinner at our house, and this was on the weekend. And Nadine was always looking to try and find some kind of dairy-free product, just to always looking for improvements on that. And she came across this one that she used, and she said it was really, really good. Like, she said, you guys wouldn't even know I've been cooking with it. I've been using it. And I said, well, where's it from? She says, it's this company and it's, comes in the stick. And I said, that's Corey's company. Corey runs that factory in Brantford. She goes, really? And they know Corey because and I said, screw it. So I called him and he answered his phone. And they said, hey, Corey, just calling to let you know you got some new admirers, new fans of your product. He goes, well, what are you talking about? I said, Nadine was out. She bought this new dairy-free, butter, and says it's fabulous. And I looked at the box and I said, it's your company. And so we started talking about the butter. He started talking to, and I had them on speaker, both Michelle and Nadine. They started talking about the products that they use from his factory. And he started talking about, well, some of that comes from our factory in Kansas City. We also have factories here. And And I said, well, you've been traveling. He said, yeah, I know. He said, I got a promotion at the end of the year. He said, I'm now traveling around to all our factories in the world. And so I'm overseeing, I got a new big promotion. And, with the new family member on the way, I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean new family member? Oh, did I not tell you? I said, no. I said, yeah, yeah. He said, expecting our third. And I said, well, you were talking about moving out to possibly Calgary because you can fly from there. And, you were talking about maybe buying, pay off mortgage and, downsize, make a lateral move. And he said, it's funny that you called right now. You must be psychic. I said, why? He said, Shannon wanted me to call you. And I told her it was the weekend. I'd call you early next week to talk about looking at 4-bedroom homes. If I didn't call on that because of the butter, had nothing to do with real estate, right? Has nothing to do with real estate. It's going to turn into possibly a sale, a buy, and maybe, if it's not a buy, it's a referral somewhere. But that's where, going back to Julia, going back to having a smaller database and really knowing about the people, you can build those bigger relationships. And I can tell you, that's what I've been doing with Corey for a number of years. And I've had easily 6 referrals from them, probably over a 10-year period. So it's just, I'm really understanding how that, yeah, they get my newsletters, but it's that live flow. It's that making when you're sending out the information, making it personalized. Even that first sentence that I sent out with these emails, if I didn't personalize it and reference a specific thing about them or a conversation we've had, I wouldn't be getting the responses, because to them, it's just going to come across as if it's just a generic email. So are you using those little bit of techniques to be able to build those relationships better and to get that engagement? If you're not, think about what you're putting out. What is your messaging? Because that's the difference in this market, in any market, but more so in this market. Okay. Eller, I saw another one of your video, the longer YouTube stuff. How's the response with all that?
It's getting a lot of views. I mean, I think I'm at 1,800 or 1,900 views across the 4 videos, so it's doing well. Not a lot of reach out yet, but it's funny you mentioned. I just had a review with the guys who were putting that video together the other day, and there's seeing on the back end that YouTube is actually starting to recommend my videos to people looking for, when they type in Barrie in their search out, that my videos are starting to get recommended. So I think it's just a matter of time now.
That's great.
And I am noticing on my my Google ads and stuff, I've seen an uptick in leads coming in suddenly. And I've changed nothing on the Google ads, but because Google owns YouTube, they silently behind, push certain things to the top.
Good. And
it's coming along.
Super. Great to hear. Anybody else doing anything? Have you tried something at the start of this year that worked or not worked? Okay.
I think what I've been doing too is approaching more people and just asking them, what's new, what's exciting this year, what are your plans? And I find people start opening up and start telling me a whole bunch of stuff, and inevitably it leads to real estate, and then I'll give them my information and tell them what's going on, and they love it because it's like, oh, I didn't even think of that.
It's just starting. The hardest part is just starting and being consistent, right? But it won't work unless you have the mindset that that's what you want to do. Okay. So you can put all the things in place But if you're not waking up in the morning or before you go to bed thinking about, okay, how can I start a conversation tomorrow? Who could I possibly meet with? Where could I go? What could I do? Where am I going tomorrow that I could have a conversation? Is it the garage? Is it somewhere else? Is it a restaurant? Is it just going for coffee with somebody? Okay. But you have to have that mindset going into those conversations about how can I get more information about this person? And it doesn't have to do anything with buying and selling real estate.
I
Right?
think
All your
Facebook is a great way, at least my Facebook, because I'll see updates on people, and that gives me the opportunity to reach out and
good,
say,
okay.
my goodness, like, hey, I just saw that post. Tell me more about it. And then again, inevitably, after about 10, 15 minutes, it goes back to real estate and we have
Good.
conversations now.
Now, when you do that, are you reaching out in the group or are you doing a direct messaging?
So either I have their contact information, so I'll message them either through my phone and text them or call them directly. Um, One person that I haven't spoken to in years, we used to work together at Rogers, and he messaged me saying, "Hey Herb, I was at your old desk and I found an award you received. Do you want it?" And that's when now we're having a conversation. You know, it's hilarious how that worked out.
Good. Okay. Anybody else seeing or getting any different responses from what you're doing? Okay. So I had an interesting conversation, a financial planner that I use from Manulife. Him and I went to high school together, and actually our birthdays are exactly the same day. We actually, even before high school, we started playing hockey at 10 years old. I was chatting with him yesterday and just going through a review and then just talking about in general. And we got on to, he says, I'm hearing about all these, you know, people in real estate that, are leaving the industry and the sales are down. And so we chatted a little bit about that. And the conversation went from going from, what's going on in the industry to talking about work habits. And he said, Scott, he said, it's no different than in our industry. He said, like, when, Manulife and financial planners, they brought in a different set of financial rules, things like that, and compensation to the planners. And he said, literally, he said, probably no different than real estate is right now, or than that probably is when it's not a hot market. He said, I had people in the office that I'm looking around at doing nothing. They're literally looking at hoping someone's going to reach out to them because they were sending the monthly newsletter. They were doing stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, I said, how long ago was that? I said, that was probably 6, 7 years ago that, we had that change. And he said, so I just kept saying to him, like, get off your backsides and get out and communicate with people, prospect, go see the people you already have, see if you can build more, get more business from them or get referrals. But he said majority of them that were there were doing the same things that they were doing before, hoping to get a different result. And he said they didn't. He said eventually they just left the business. Not any different than we're seeing in this last year, and we're probably going to see in the real estate industry, probably over the next 18 months to two years before we see the market pick up a little bit more or stronger. The issue is that you guys don't want to be one of them, right? So it's not just the real estate industry. What we talk about when we talk about doing your daily and weekly activities and talk about looking at going back into your database, looking at your systems, creating another way of adding to your prospecting, like what Elroy did with, the YouTube stuff. Looking at your marketing, like one thing that, we talked, Nancy and I talked about one time was as the market was slowing, what do you do with all the marketing, the billboards, the newspaper ads, do you stop it? Thank goodness she didn't, right? And that is what majority of agents will do is they will look at how do I cut out expenses? How do I cut back on stuff? Or what is the new shiny thing? I'm hearing one agent over here is making deals by doing this, another agent's making deals doing this. Or there's a new trainer online saying, if you want to do 5 deals a month, join my sessions, and right? It's all a bunch of crap. Okay. You have to find the things that you like to enjoy and do in real estate, but make sure they involve connecting with people, right? You know, Julia, she loves doing, the political side of it. And that's great. And people see her passion for that. And they know when she does real estate, she's got a passion for that too. Right? So it's just a matter of now we just got to figure out how we get your database in order. And it could be as simple as, Julia, like the easiest way to get your database in order, start connecting with the people that you feel closest with. Take 5 a week and just go have coffee with them. That's it. So if you had coffee 5 times a week with a different person, at the end of the month, you've had 20 people that you got in front of, or at least had the opportunity of having a conversation with. And at the same time, it's going to update your database. So rather than trying to update your database by doing it through your system and, okay, well, maybe these people, just start going, seeing the ones that are probably your biggest cheerleaders. Okay? Because I've seen that work in the past. And today, the agents that are doing that, where they're actually going out and just having a quick coffee and just chatting with their database, are seeing, and just as I've been doing, and I told you guys that I'm doubling down on how many contacts I'm spending with on my database. Because for many years it's just been my newsletter and an odd poinsettia that I do once a year. But now I'm purposely reaching out and purposely trying to find what the next story or conversation I can have with them. And I think, Julia, for you, if you start doing that with your database, forget about trying to organize. Just pick your biggest cheerleaders, go have coffee with them, and then just start moving through your database. And by the end of that, you're going to know who to keep and who not to keep. Right? So you're doing 2 things at once versus trying to just allocate things, because it's like you're getting ready to get ready. Right?
And Julia, you don't have to do this by yourself. Myself, Michelle, I'm sure Michelle would love to help you, organize that database and create, especially in Lofty, different segments. These are your close friends. These are people you know or used to work with. These are people that you've met, open houses and stuff like that. Create those segments, and now you can strategically start messaging them different ways.
And it's so funny. There's people in my database. I have no recollection of who they are. So I've been taking would that be called low hanging fruit or the high hanging fruit? I've been trying to rip those out because it really jumbles up your brain when you have too much to deal with. But I have been making I've been making phone calls to people that I haven't touched base with in a long time, just for conversation's sake.
Good.
Checking up on elderly parents and things like that. Which is due. Like if you know a little detail like that, like parents are not well, or something a little personal, let's just have that conversation and leave real estate out of it. And I've been doing that, so that's been and you know what? It's a real feel good exercise.
Yeah, and now what you need to do is set a goal per week on how many you're going to do.
Mhm.
And if it's even like 5 is a simple number.
Yeah.
So if you can reach out and just start going through it, and you'll narrow that database down. How many are in your database approximately?
Which one? That's the problem.
Okay.
Like I have a lot that are in the Treb database
Okay.
that aren't even my Lofty one yet. And my Lofty one came from the old Prime Agent one.
Okay.
And I haven't even started on just my phone, people I've put in that should be moved off my phone or just kept on my phone because they're not going to be leads.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a mess.
Yeah. So the easiest way to fix that mess is in small chunks, not
Yeah,
as one big project, right?
exactly.
So if you started to say, I'm going to connect with 5 people, and it could ideally face to face or a conversation.
Mhm.
And even if you're going to have a conversation, make it a video call, right? So they get to see, you get to see them. And as soon as that call finishes, you only took that one and you load it into your Lofty. If that's the CRM you're going to use,
Yeah.
then you load it in. So you're only dealing with one at a time.
Mhm.
Okay. In the meantime, you can then start moving some in chunks. If you know these are all buyers, then you can move those in. But the easiest way to do it is one at a time, because those will become your cheerleaders. Those are the ones that are going to send you the referrals. They're the ones that are going to reach out to you. Whereas so those are your A's, your B's, your C's are usually the ones that know the other ones below that, the names that are in there and you're going, I have no idea why they're in here. Don't even look at them until you've gone through the other stuff. If they've got an email address or a number and you can text and send stuff out, that's great. But that's getting in front of them on a call. You've got to get that live flow, but only take it one at a time and then update that particular one. Because I hate to say it, but if you're not doing that, if any of you aren't doing that, you're losing the opportunity of building that flow with that smaller group that's going to give you the referrals. Okay. And I'm finding that as I'm going through mine, I assumed that even this one here in the NAG region, I assumed that they knew that I worked that area because they're a referral from the sister who lives in Grimsby. So I'm thinking, right? You would think that would make sense, but not at all, right? So really important just to really work. And I'm finding after talking with my buddy Ralph from Manulife, it was like, doesn't matter the industry. If you're into the sales cycle of things, it's all about the relationships, right? Elroy, how do you defer or categorize the leads that would come in from your online versus your own database you have now versus the YouTube stuff? Like, do you have different set of criteria on who's going to get what and when they're going to get it?
Yeah, my online leads, when they come in, they go through the chat bot a little bit first, and then once I've talked to them and kind of had more of a personal conversation with them, that's when I'll start to move them into Lofty or for a search once I know more info what they're looking for. So the
Okay.
Lofty leads are a little bit more refined, and some of the Lofty leads are online, like the Google ads go straight into Lofty, but Lofty does a good job of warming them up, although this morning's ones are garbage. Yeah. But yeah, that's basically once they get in a Lofty first, and then once I have a conversation, I'll set them up on a property search. And once to that point, then I know they're serious because now I know what they're looking for: a 3-bedroom home, or are they looking for a vacant land, or what are they looking for? but I have two CRMs. One of them is just kicking through leads, qualifying them all, and kind of bringing them to the top for me. So that's the one to talk to. So some of them are just tire kickers. I mean, and they'll be there for a while, and then
Right.
yeah.
Now, what
But if I
about your,
notice that they're responding quickly to chat bots and stuff, then I call them pretty quick. I need
okay,
a call.
yeah. Now, what about your regular database, like past clients, people you know? How do you have them in a different CRM and
Um,
different activity with them?
yeah, that's where I fall apart a little bit. My follow-up is terrible.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, that's where I really could improve on the follow-up. I mean, some of them I do, that's more of a touch base, Facebook Messenger. I chat with a lot of people on there, you know.
Okay.
So that's where, if they've got to the point where on my Facebook page, then okay, they're a little more serious, unless they're a Leaf fan, then they come right in.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I use
And
Messenger a lot, like a lot more than I used to. It's getting to be to the point where it's like, wow, this is interesting. The people, they're on Facebook, like Herbert was saying, they seem to be there.
yeah.
Like, that's our demographic too. The younger kids, the younger people aren't on Facebook. They're somewhere else, but they're not really, in my opinion, they're not qualified. They don't have the income to buy a house. They're just,
Yeah.
it's hard to get in. So yeah, Facebook tends to be, 40 plus people that tend to be either a homeowner or have already bought a house. As Julia said, those are more low hanging fruit. They already own a house. They may need to sell to buy. That's easier
Yeah.
than a first time buyer. That one's
Okay.
way up. That's way up the tree still, Julia.
Yeah. So, and then with, but the inquiries that you're getting through your online stuff, is that first time buyers? Like, do they come in as a category? First time buyers, home to sell, downsizers, or anything like that?
When they come in as an online, they are all over the place.
Okay.
They are, I mean, they're all over the place. A lot of them are Toronto people trying to move up, to get away from the rat race. Although recently, I've noticed in the last 3 or 4 weeks, it's people looking to move a little closer to Toronto because they're getting called back to work. I've
Oh,
noticed a few of those already. It's like, oh, this is a bigger trend than really is out there. But then there's, yeah, I like on the weekend I was out with a couple. They just want to get away from it all. Their value in their house is so much that they could probably sell it and buy with no mortgage in the north, and then just work what they have to bring in some cash to buy groceries. Which,
yeah.
I look at, that's a bit brave, but that's what they want to do.
Okay. Yeah,
So
and that's where, like, I know again we talked about the auto flow and the live flow, but it really gets down to having the conversations, having that communication and the follow-up.
yeah, it absolutely is. It's conversations. And that's
Yeah.
where, I mean, like the dog park. I mean, people laugh me to go to the dog park, but I'm looking at my buyer leads and I know there's 4 of them in there that could turn into a buy this year. And they're from the dog park.
Yeah.
They know who I am. I'm there every morning. They know my dog, right? And
Right.
the one fellow said to me just the other day, he goes, "Yeah, I think I'm investing in some property." He goes, "I'm making like $500,000 a year," and I'm like, "Whoa." Like,
Yeah.
hello. And he's a renter. And I'm looking at him like, that's insane. Like, you got spotless credit, or so he says, and he's making that kind of money and you're renting? Like, makes no
Well,
sense to
and
me.
and that's where we look at, what are your network groups? What are your hobbies? Right? Make sure that those are things you're going to concentrate on because people are going to do business with people they like. The
Yeah.
easiest way to like somebody is find something common. So it could be, at the gym, it could be a hobby, it could be, events that you always seem to go to together. It could be as simple as walking the dog. You see the same people.
Yep.
Whatever that is, then you just got to make sure that you're having those conversations in that area. And it doesn't have to do anything with real estate because
No.
if you're following the Ford questions and you're asking them what they do and how it's going, usually you're going to get, oh, and what is it you do? How's it going with you?
Yeah.
That opens the door.
Yeah. They do business with people that like, know, and trust.
Yeah,
What it comes down to. So if they don't know
right.
you,
I
how are they
think
going to do business?
a great feature of Lofty too is the tasks. And I think that's a feature that a lot of people don't use. And it's such a powerful tool, because when you have a conversation with somebody and they're like, oh, well, we're going away or we're doing this, and in March of 2026, I'm thinking of doing something. Well, that's where the tasks is such a beautiful tool, because you could put in there, call this person, they will be back from vacation and they're thinking about listing their property. It gives you a reminder, because you're going to completely forget that, but then that little task will pop up, send you an email saying, hey, call this person. You're like, oh, now I got to call him.
Yeah. Yeah. And the follow-up and those conversations, even if those people aren't even thinking about listing, you know they've gone away. What a nicer call than to call them back and say, hey, last time we chatted, you were heading away. Just thought I'd, chime in and just say, how was it? What would you recommend about the trip? Would you do it again? That's it, right? That usually will lead to more conversation. So it doesn't have to be about real estate. And most of the time, it's good that it's not, because it will naturally come up, especially as they get to know what you do. Okay? Because there's enough headlines in the news that you're going to get like what my friend did. He brought it up and said, hey, I'm hearing about all these people leaving the industry and the low sales numbers. And so that's why it's important to really focus on having those connections, however it is. Important to do your, set up that auto flow, but really more important to have those follow-ups that are either direct messaging, which is, when they say direct flow, and we've covered this, it's the correspondence back and forth, whatever media that is. Okay. That's the magic to it. Okay. Because usually that will lead to setting up a next conversation, just as what Herbert was saying. Put it in the system. It's going to pop up. It's going to be, okay, this is a person that I've got to contact. And about this topic, nothing, whatever that is. Okay. And so that's going to be the difference. And it doesn't have to be difficult. It's just making sure that you're thinking of it. Okay. Because you just have to think about when you're going to have these conversations, or if you're going somewhere, if you're going to be doing something, is how am I going to start a conversation with some people? How am I going to follow up with the last conversation that I had? What points am I going to cover? And you should be doing that just as I did with my emails. As I said, I got better response because my first sentence was about them, not about the real estate. And that they saw that and they continued on. I'm going to do more of it. It's no different than what I did when I was selling a lot of real estate. Just what we're talking about, that hasn't changed. You talk to anybody that's been in the business 15, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, all we're talking about is conversations, which is some of it's prospecting, follow up, setting up reminders, right? Setting up the reminders, looking at and it doesn't matter if it was computerized or if it was in a friggin' binder. All you did, if you had their name and you wrote down, this is what we talked about, when to call them, you just took that, put it in 90 days later, and guess what? You flipped over your calendar, your manual, and there, well, these are the people I got to call this month. No magic. Yeah, Nance.
Yeah, it's kind of what I do, because I'm all pen and paper, right? When I talk to somebody, I write down, I spoke to Jim at 11 o'clock on February whatever, and this is what we talked about. And then put onto the whiteboard, you have to call Jim on this day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know I need to change more into being electronic, but
you don't. Whatever system works for you individually, right?
Yeah.
Whatever system you use, that's the one that works, that's the one to stick with.
Yeah.
Don't look for the fancy shiny object, because what will happen is, and I've seen this happen, you spend months going through, oh, this new system isn't working. And what you're not doing is you're not doing the things that are going to make you money.
Yeah. Hey, look, there's a castle.
Yeah, like, right? So again, looking at the little things. So, Elroy, your task for you is, how do you follow up with the people that aren't your online leads? Right? How do you make sure you're following up with them? And Julie, we just got to get you seeing 5 people in your database a week, having a coffee with them. Right? Just a bit of those changes, and just don't try to fix the big project, just little bits. Right? Elroy, if you can make sure that the people that are in your database, not your online leads, are at least getting a monthly newsletter or even a video update from you. If you're right into the videos, just do a little video update, personalize it to them. That's all, right? I'm hearing really good things about personalized videos that don't have to be long, but then it's sent directly to that individual. And it's either a little market update, or just checking in, how are things going, and that is getting attraction. So, and then actually for you, Elroy, it might be a good idea then reach out to them and say, by the way, I've got this new YouTube channel. Love for you to subscribe to it. And there's some great information there about communities that we're all part of. Just a thought. Okay.
One more thing too
Yeah.
for people who are looking for a different way to remind yourself. Your phone has, both Android and iPhone both have reminders on it, so you can add a quick reminder and put a date and time to call somebody. So while it's fresh in your memory, just go on your phone, say call this person on this date at this time, and it'll just remind you, because the notification will pop up, so you don't have to rely completely on Lofty. Put it on your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use my Google Calendar for that all the time. You
Yeah.
see my
That's what I use.
calendar, it's multicolored. It's like a rainbow. Different categories: family stuff, personal stuff, hockey stuff.
Yeah. Which is great. And right. And again, doesn't matter what system you use, as long as you're using it and you're looking at it daily. Right. And going through it. Guys, I'm going to suggest for Julia, there's some transactions in that database that are just waiting for you to contact them. They don't know you're going to contact them, but they're waiting for you to. Right? So you just got to get started on it. And I'm finding that with like what I'm doing. I'm thinking, now that I'm back at doing it, there's some people in there that I thought would be a no-brainer to reach out.
Well, the person I spoke to yesterday asking about ill parents. She asked how I was doing, and I said I'm out showing bungalows to a client because I just have a conditional on my condo. So the seller wants to look at bungalows. And she said, "Oh, where's she looking?" And I said, "Looking everywhere, Etobicoke, west, east. We're going to east tomorrow." And she says, "I'm going to start looking for bungalows again." So if she was looking for bungalows, then her parents got sick, and that's been a lot. So she put everything on hold. But that's you're very right. You reach out about one thing, conversations go farther. So yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Anybody got new listing? Any sale happen over the last week? Yep. Nancy.
So yeah, I've got a conditional on my condo.
Oh, fabulous.
I'm very happy about that because we got many offers, many low offers.
Yeah.
And we finally found somebody that jumped to the price that we were looking for. So that's still conditional. I'm waiting on the status.
Sure.
And a lot of sad people that it's conditional because they were waiting for the price to drop, the price to drop, price to drop. One fellow put in a couple offers, and I I shared with him the number that she would take because she gave me permission to do that. And he's like, no, no, no. And beat me with stats. And I said, I think we're just going to hang on. And we did. And so we got our number. So
So there's
that
an
certificate is
interesting
pretty
story.
good. But, yeah, so we're looking for a bungalow. I also have a client looking for a lakefront lot to build on in Ontario, who's also looking in Quebec. I've reached out in Quebec too. I talked to Nancy about this.
Okay.
She knows the area in Quebec they were looking at, but I think they've decided Quebec's off the table. So yeah,
When you say
something like
lakefront, you thinking Lake Ontario or are you thinking lake anywhere?
they were looking at the Ottawa River. I think they're boaters, so they would like to be able to have hopefully a sailboat, but
What's the
they'd like to
budget?
build something. So
What's the
yeah,
budget roughly?
for the lot,
Yeah,
it's under two, and they don't mind driving, right? So
they're going to be driving a ways.
what's that?
They're going to be driving a ways north to make that budget match.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, that's
So
what we were
I've sold,
talking.
yeah, I sold a waterfront lot on the Magnetawan River in November, December for 200. And that's not a very
Yeah.
good waterfront lot for boating. And fine for fishing, but not sailboat quality.
Yeah, we were talking more about Timiskaming, Thorn, like up that way.
Yeah.
Because that's right on the Ottawa River, and fishing is fantastic on that river.
Yeah. Yeah, this could be like a place for them to retire, I think. The kids are still in school and stuff like that, but this has always kind of been on their mind, and now they really want to move forward on it. So
Sweet.
I went over for a coffee,
That's
matter of fact, last week and got a few details and made a few calls, and they had a couple properties they were looking at, but now that they've dug deeper, I think we're just going to stick in Ontario.
so when you
What
say
about Anita and Jason Fleming in Niagara Falls? They mentioned to me that there's some wonderful lakefront properties that are just ready to be renovated and made to your own right on the lake.
Mhm. I will talk to them. I've got them in a search. They're searching themselves, of course, like everybody does, but I've got something going out, but I've only searched vacant. I think they should look at just taking down and renovating, versus a completely vacant lot. So
yeah, I guess the question's going to be, do they have a specific type of building they want to put on this lot though?
yeah. We went over some of the plans that
Okay.
they've been looking at. A couple of the builders that create, it's new. There's a guy in Muskoka. I think you might know this fellow. He does, 5 or 6 different types of cottage or houses that you can put on, and they almost prefab it.
Yeah.
Or you could buy the plans. So
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
So I will give Vanetta a call though. That's
Okay.
a good idea.
Nancy, you got some activity? You're supposed to be, away enjoying the sunshine and
I've been working the whole time.
ah,
Relaxing isn't my strong suit, right? I'm still enjoying.
good.
Yeah, I listed the one that I talked about in our last meeting that I was supposed to sign the paperwork like the next day. I ended up signing it Saturday, like 3 hours before I walked out the door to come here.
Yeah.
Thankfully, and I took a bunch of pictures. They didn't turn out. So there's only one picture on the listing, which is a nightmare because I've got people reaching out through realtor.ca. So I'm hoping, I talked to Elroy yesterday. I'm hoping he can go and take some pictures tomorrow. Get some pictures on that listing. I think that one's going to jump off the market. So yeah, I've still been in touch with her because the timing couldn't be worse. And she was just, I want to list it before you go away. And I'm like, not good timing for me. But what do? You don't say no.
No, that's
You know?
that's good.
Yeah, getting tons of action on that one. Just I need pictures.
Okay. Good. just before we finish, a little side note. I was just thinking of how I used the Korea report. I have that house that I've had in Thorold for sale with the builder since October. It's listings up the end of this month. And I know he's had different realtors, he's got different products, different realtors working on different products. And I thought, you know what? So I sent it to him. And I just said, hey, just here's the Korea forecast. No surprise, there's very little activity, especially in the price range. I've been keeping in touch, sending the weekly updates, and making sure I'm having at least a conversation once a week. And so I sent the report, and I got, hey, Scott, thanks for letting me know. No surprise, but it's good to see sort of from a third party, and that we're all on the right path. And so I texted, I say, hey, you got time for a quick call? Called them and basically said, look, here's what I see. We got the market's definitely in the range that the price you have, where we're at. We're talking about lowering. I know the circumstances can't, but we also got a double whammy where usually by mid-February, we're hot into our spring market, with this deep cold, lots of snow, uncertainty. I think everything's delayed 60 days. So, I would request, if it's okay with you, can we extend the listing to the end of May? What do you think I got?
No problem. Let's do it.
Said it all makes sense to me. He said, he said, I see what's going on. I understand the report. Yeah, let's put it out to the end of May, and then let's see what happens in the spring market. And also he said, once the snow flies, let's talk about the other 7 lots that I have. So use those third parties. That's where I just want to really reinforce, sometimes what you're going to try and say to try and get, the information, it's easier to have a third party or endorsement from the systems that we use, that we belong to be able to let them soak in the information before you have that conversation. Okay. So, but based on that, thank you for showing up today. Hopefully everybody's safe. Be safe out there traveling around if you are. I will see you back middle of March. I am gone.
Where are you going?
I am going to Southeast Asia.
Wow.
So fly out Friday. I'm going to Thailand, going to Cambodia, Vietnam, back to Thailand, and then on the way home, we're spending 2 days in Abu Dhabi.
And you're telling us to be safe.
So it's amazing how, if I would have looked at booking this trip 6 months ago, seeing where the market, like just where everything was, it'd be like, maybe we shouldn't go. We started planning this 2 years ago, and actually 2 years ago, we started planning it and booked it a year and a half ago. Right? So make sure with everything that you're doing, you still looking at those big goals and booking some stuff. Because if you wait to do it, sometimes waiting never gets there. Right? So I just wanted to share that with you. Michelle's back on Saturday, so the meetings are still going to continue on. But where I am, I'm 12 hours ahead. So I'll be 12 hours ahead of you guys. I will have some access to email and that kind of stuff, but I will check it. But if you're looking for an immediate response, I did send out John's info, and as I say, you can always reach out to Michelle directly, because if there's something really, she knows how to find me. But keep doing what you guys are doing, but just tweak it a little bit and just make sure you're having those one-on-one coffees in Julia's case, right? And then maybe some personalized videos, Elroy, with things like that. And everybody else, just make sure you're planning ahead and track your numbers, because I really feel once this snow is gone and the weather warms up, even with that nice day yesterday we had here, I was amazed at the people I was talking with, how their attitude was so much better. So I think 6 weeks from now, we're all going to be going, once we get March break over with, we're going to see a lot more activity. But for you to take advantage of it, you got to do the stuff we've been talking about. All right.